Hear ye, here comes the judge. It is the Yogi Judge, Judge Dawson, and I am back with another podcast to give you information that you can use to just elevate your life and go to the next level. Now look, I don't think I know everything, but I am a judge. I've been doing it for over 9 years. I've seen so many cases come across my desk where people are just destroying their lives because they're not thinking ahead, or as my program that I do says, they're not finishing first, beginning with the end in mind. See, this legal system is crazy. It is just waiting to wrap you up. There are so many laws on the books. In fact, there's a book called A Felony a Day. And I really believe that every single day when you walk up to a store, to your school, to your job, or just simply wake up in the morning, there is some law that governs your activity, and you could be breaking that law. So with my programs, with my email, with this podcast, I'm just trying to give you some information so that you can avoid the legal matrix and live your absolute best life. So if you like what you hear, go to my website, judgedawson.com, subscribe to my email. Go to iTunes and Spotify and subscribe to this podcast, and let's continue to just grow together. And if there's somebody that you think can benefit for some of the information that I have here, you definitely want to keep them in the loop so that we can all continue to live our best lives. And if you've been listening to the podcast, you know I don't hold you long. I just try to give you information that you can use. So a lot of times these are very short hits, because something happened in court or something inspired me, but I got to give it to you, because if I'm not sharing my wisdom, then what am I doing? What's the point? I'm not on the bench as a judge just to be there or just to collect a check. I'm there to positively affect lives. That is my mission, and that will be my mission until the day I am gone from that position. So today we are talking about forgiveness. Forgiveness. You know, that can be considered an ugly word in some circles, because to forgive is very difficult. I mean, think about it. Every single day, you have to make a choice whether or not you're going to let something be a bygone or if you're going to hold on to it. And even as a judge, when I see people come in my courtroom over and over and over again, at some point I have to say, am I going to forgive this person, or am I holding them captive to what they've shown me before or what they've done before? But I submit to you that in order for us to be free, in order for you and I to live our absolute best lives, we have to practice forgiveness. So I want to give you a few tools on how you can be a better forgiver. And then I also want to give you one warning. So let me start with the tools of forgiveness. The first thing is to acknowledge that you have been forgiven at some point. Now, some of you are like, nah, people don't forgive me. Everybody holds me accountable for what I do. And that may be true. But go all the way back as far as maybe that time you broke a vase or a glass at home and your mother yelled at you. I'm sure sometime after that, she gave you a hug, or at least she fed you. Now, I'm not talking about as we move on as adults, because again, as we become adults, we get a little hardened and we're able to hold on to the lack of forgiveness a little bit longer. But I'm talking about when you were a child. You remember those times that you were forgiven, at least by your mom or your auntie or your grandmother, or anybody who was your caretaker. So it applies across the board. And then as you move forward, you remember other times where you were forgiven. Maybe an officer pulled you over and let you go. Sometimes that happens, sometimes it doesn't. Maybe you went to a courtroom and you ran into a judge like me, Judge Dawson, and I gave you a lower fine or even dismissed your case. Or maybe you made a mistake at work and your boss didn't fire you for that very first mistake. That is an example of forgiveness. And my point is, you have been forgiven at some point in your life. So as long as you first acknowledge that, yes, forgiveness exists because I've been forgiven, that's a step toward you being a better forgiver. The second step is for you to get out of jail. Get out of the jail of unforgiveness. See, what we don't realize is that when you refuse to forgive people, you are basically putting yourself in a jail. You are basically saying, you know what? I am going to stay stuck here. I don't want to forgive anybody. I want to stay mad. And in fact, that's what will happen. You will stay mad. You will remain stuck, and that will be your destiny. But see, you have the keys. You have the ability to open the door to that jail. You have the ability to open the door to forgiveness, because when you're in jail, you're in a confined area. And when you're in that confined area, you can't get light. You can't get sunshine. And what is life without light and sunshine? So open the door from that jail and walk out into the life of forgiveness. The next point is to take control. See, there are very few things that we have absolute control over. And I talk about it in my webinars and my workshops. You know, you have control over certain things, but most things in life you just don't. You don't control the weather. You don't control what the person's going to do when you run into them. You don't control what happens when you get to work necessarily, but you do control a few things. And one of them is your ability to forgive. So take back your control. And then after you take control, we have to go a step further. The next step is to actually take responsibility. See, it's enough to say, yeah, I control my forgiveness and I can decide whether or not I'm going to do it or not. But the next step is to take responsibility and say, you know what? If it's going to be, it's up to me. So if there's going to be forgiveness, it's up to you to forgive. That's something that you totally control. So I'm telling you, if you want to live a more enriched life and enriched existence, begin to forgive today. Not only forgive others, but forgive yourself. How many times do we beat ourselves up over and over and over again because of the mistakes that we've made? And we are often our own worst critic. But I'm telling you, when you tap into the ability to start forgiving, not only will your life be better, but everyone around you will be affected, because of positivity will shine off your body. So forgiveness is important. Now, here's my warning. There will be some situations where you will have to decide to forgive, and you know you won't get anything for it. And maybe what we do in those situations is that we forgive with a form of caution. It's like, okay, I'm going to forgive you, but I'm going to stay away from you. I'm not saying that because you start to forgive people, you have to invite them back into your life and invite them back into your surroundings. No, I'm just saying you should forgive to release that burden on yourself. But that other step is making sure, as a warning, that you're mindful of the people that you're letting around you. So while you want to forgive, you want to be careful. And it doesn't mean that you're going to invite that mess back into your life. But one thing for sure we know is that forgiveness is important. Now, as I promised, I don't hold you long. These podcasts are meant to be short takes from the judge, because guess what? I got to go. I got to get back on the bench and start administering some justice. But I wanted to stop by just to tell you that I care about you as a judge. I don't want you to get caught up in this legal system. And maybe by tapping into the power of forgiveness, you won't make those mistakes. So, ladies and gentlemen, until I see you next time, make sure you subscribe to this podcast. Make sure you go to my website, sign up for my email, judgedawson.com, and most importantly, be the absolute best that you can be. And until we meet again, namaste.